How's it going, guys? My name is Oliver. Today I'm doing a pretty important video. I'll be covering exactly how I do my meetings. So how do I exactly close them? I'm not going to go over the presentation too much because I did make a big video on it. I'll put a link in the description. Today I'm more so going to cover like the structure, the kind of the script of the meeting. What questions should you ask? When should you ask them? When to go for the close? Do you get payment on the first call? Do you send a contract before or after? Basically the entire process of what it looks like to close meetings into paying clients. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to switch my screen. I made a nice document with all the details. And yeah, I'll go over it with you guys. And at the end, you should have a pretty good understanding on how to close meetings for your SMMA. All right, so here we are on the meeting framework. I'm not going to keep it too, it's not going to be too complex. It's not a script. Okay, I want you guys to know this from the start. I don't believe in using scripts for meetings because meetings are so, like the way they operate from one client to the other is going to be completely different. So I'm not going to give you a script, but I'll give you the framework, right? What are the steps? What is like the path we have to take when we're talking with a client and trying to get them to close? So I did put a couple of example of questions, but again, it's going to be very different depending on the client. So first off, before even booking the meeting, you want to make sure you have some sort of calendar set up. Okay, I use Calendly. A couple of things that are very important. One of the main issues you guys will have is not really closing the meetings. Closing the meetings isn't too hard, right? If you have a good offer, a good service, and you're decent at selling, it's not going to be too hard closing the meetings. What's going to be difficult is to actually get people to show up. The amount of no-shows you guys will get is going to be, it's going to happen pretty frequently. Okay, it's normal. So what can we do to avoid that? Two things. One, you want to set your availabilities very close to the day you actually first spoke with them. So whether it be email or a cold call, you want to make sure they can only book a call with you like the next day, in the next 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, max. 4 days is even pushing it. I personally only do 3 days. All right. I want them, after we had that initial conversation, to remember me and to not, oh, let's book a call for a week and a half. And then we get to a week and a half, they completely forgot. They don't even remember what I talked about. And it doesn't work. So you want to keep the whole conversation fresh by making them book a call as soon as possible. This is another thing that's extremely important. I do believe it's a paid feature with Calendly. I'm not too sure. But if you can set up reminders, you can use GoHighLevel as well if you have it. If you can set up reminders, that is going to help tremendously. All right, so you want to have an email reminder 24 hours before the meeting, one before an hour, and also one 10 minutes before the meeting. That's what I do. I do both email and text message. I do both email and text message reminders. Okay, because not everyone's on their emails. I know not everyone has it set up on their phone so they can't immediately see it, especially if it's a work email. But their phones, everyone's on their phone all the time. So I know that if I do send an SMS reminder, they will have it, they will receive it. All right, so this is very important before even doing the meetings to make sure that you actually have a good show up rate. And yeah, for the meetings, you can use Zoom or Google Meets, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what is the framework? Meeting framework is not too complicated. I have it broken down into 5 steps. First step is questions and answers. All right, this is what I call the discovery part of the meeting. So when you first hop on a call with the person, the number one goal is to get as much information from them as possible. Why did they accept the call? That is the main question we're trying to answer. Okay, there's a reason why if you were able to cold call them, pitch them on a service, and then get them to show up on a Zoom meeting, there is something they're trying to solve as an issue. So your goal there is to find what is that issue and how can my business solve that issue for them. If you can do that, the meeting will be successful. That's pretty much summed up in like a line or two. Okay, so what does that look like? Typically when you do your discovery phase, it's going to last about half an hour, depending on the client. You want to start off, make some small talk. All right, so if you had an interesting conversation on a first cold call or on the email, you can, pick it back up or, just doesn't have to be too crazy. Just make a bit small talk. I personally always like to ask them, I'm like, oh, how long have you had your business for? It's very cool. I liked your website. You can kind of hype them up and talk about their business. People love talking about themselves. So if you can get them to talk about themselves, you're already going to be starting off on a good foot. Then you want to ask them a couple of questions. I have a style that's very direct. Okay, I don't fluff it up. I don't ask questions like, oh, what inspired you to start your business? Stuff like that. I can't. All right. I'm someone who's very direct in my questioning, so I don't ask that many questions, but I ask very important questions. So first question I asked them, I'm like, all right, perfect. So have you guys, out of curiosity, have you guys already worked with an agency in the past? I kind of want them to say yes. Yes, because one, they'll understand how it works. And two, if they have in the past, that means that something happened and now they're no longer working with that agency. So if they say yes, we have. Next question, follow up. Perfect. What happened there? What was that? How come you guys aren't working together anymore? This is like gold. Whatever they say here is you want to soak it up and write it down on a piece of paper while you're having the meeting, and you will use that when you're going to go to phase 2, which is presentation. So if they say they didn't get me that many leads, or the leads were bad, it was too expensive, whatever they say, just keep digging, trying to find as much information as you can as to why they didn't like working with that other agency, because we will use that information. If it's price, if they say like, yeah, we were paying way too much money, we weren't getting that many leads for it, then boom, you use your performance-based offer. You mentioned, sir, earlier that with the other agency you were paying a bit too much for your leads. What we do, very nice, we do a performance-based offer. Meaning that if, let's say for a month I do screw up and I don't get you 20 new leads, you wouldn't have to pay me the full amount. You only pay me a small part of the amount of leads that I get you. So if I do screw up, you basically don't have to pay anything. All right, so you're going to use that in the future to close the clients. So this is very important questions. I always ask that. Next question, I say, all right, perfect. Just so I can get a better understanding of your business and see where you guys are at currently, you can ask revenue. That's what we want to know. I typically ask client. I feel like people are a bit, they don't like sharing revenue, like numbers. So I'll always ask them, how many clients are you guys serving per month on average? And then they'll say, I don't know, 20 clients per month. I'm like, all right, perfect. And on average, how much is a job typically worth to your business? They might say $1,000. Boom, now I can do the calculations and get the revenue. So instead of directly asking for the revenue, which is a bit of a question that not everyone is open to answering, if you ask, how many clients are you doing per month? They might say 10. All right, perfect. And on average, a job, how much is it typically worth? 1,000. Okay, perfect. I know they're making $10,000 per month. Okay, so you can kind of play around and ask 2 questions and get the answer to the actual question that we want. This, extremely important, this question, okay? Very important. All right, perfect. You told me that currently you're making 20 grand per month. Do you have a specific goal in mind for the next, 6 to 12 months with your business? If they say, I want to double it, then you can basically break the numbers down. All right, if it's double, so an extra 20, each client is worth $1,000. So now in my head, as I'm doing the meeting, I know, okay, I need to get them 20 new clients per month in order for them to achieve their goals. And again, that number will be very important, so remember it. What is your goal? You want to double it, an extra 20. Very important. Remember the $20,000. Okay, I highly suggest for you guys to have like a notepad, a paper or something, and just write their answers down. Don't make it obvious. Don't like put your head down like that and start writing, but just like, off the side, you can pretend like you're, doing something and you can write it down. Here, that's a good question too. What's holding you back currently from achieving that amount? All right, so that's going to give you a better understanding of their business. What are their pain points? They might say, I don't have enough employees, not enough leads, not enough jobs. I'm doing too many small jobs, so I don't have time for big jobs. There's a bunch of reasons behind that. So we want to dig a bit deep and understand their pain points. All right. Once we've done this part, which is questions and answers, and we have like a good understanding of what's their goal, what are their pain points, what are they struggling with, basically the entire thing, we move on to step 2, which is a presentation. I'm not going to go in depth on this because I have a video that I broke this down like crazy. If you are interested, I'll put a link in the description. But this is the presentation that I use. I don't use PowerPoints. I think they're boring. I think everyone does it. They're not useful. For me, it's a waste of time. I'd rather do a workflow chart. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Each step we do this. Here, I'm just going to cover this, okay? Can I zoom? Yeah. So here it says book you 15 jobs, book you a minimum of 15 jobs, increase revenue by $5,000. Very important, adapt these numbers as you're talking with them depending on their goal. So remember earlier I told you, very important to remember what's their ultimate goal. They want to double. They want to double to 20 grand per month. Perfect. Step 3 is where I'm going to introduce their goal. So I'm going to say like, okay, step 2, we're just going to do the basics. We'll run Facebook ads for your business. We're not going to go crazy at first. The goal is just to find a winning formula for your business. Once we do, basically our criteria to see if it works or not is if we can bring you at least an extra $5,000 per month. If we can do that, then in our heads, we've had like a successful campaign with you. Once we have that, we'll increase the ad spend, which is step 3. Go watch that video. I break this down like really well. We'll reach your ultimate goal of, you mentioned it was doubling the amount, 20 grand per month. Is that correct? And they'll say yes. Perfect. That's exactly what we're going to try to do for your business. All right. So that's the whole idea. You use what they said, as leverage when you're selling your service. Here, it can be a good idea also to show case studies, right? So like pictures of templates of ads you would run for them, landing pages, the follow-up system, basically anything you're offering as a service, it would be a good idea to show pictures of it as well here. Okay? Once you've done that, this shouldn't be long. Even 15 is pushing it. For me, I'm not gonna lie, I spend maybe 2 to 3 minutes on this. I speed run through this as quickly as I can. People get bored when you're just sitting there and talking and like just think of like when you're in class, okay? And your teacher has a PowerPoint and he's just reading off the PowerPoint and he's not really having like a dynamic conversation with the class. It's boring as hell. You go on your phone, you don't listen, you zone out. People are the exact same way. All right, so I absolutely hate doing presentations. I sell best when I'm having a conversation with the person. So I don't speed run through it too much. I go enough so they understand. And then afterwards, when I get to the handling an objection phase, they'll ask me questions on this. Step 2, you do this. What does that look like exactly? Then I can use the case studies and go back to my workflow chart and show them, because now they specifically ask me a question about something here. Now they're actually engaged and they want to understand. But when you do the first presentation, don't spend half an hour on this. This is a big mistake that everyone does. Okay. Once you have that down, you move on to probably the most important part, handling objections. This is what's going to differentiate a good salesperson versus someone who's not good. How well can you handle objections? If you roll over when people say, okay, I'll think about it, you're like, okay, sorry, you take your time, just send me a message when you're available. If you're like that, it's not going to work for you. It's going to be very difficult to close people. You have to be a bit, I don't want to say pushy. You don't want to be pushy, but you kind of want to be pushy. Yeah, not too much, but just enough for them to like take action right away. All right, so if they say, I'm going to think about it, you can say something like, yeah, absolutely, I don't want to rush you into making a decision. Are there like any additional questions you might have for me so I can help you make that decision and you can think about it afterwards? And then they'll ask you another question, and then from there you completely you just ignore the fact that they said they want to think about it. You go for the close anyways. That's what I always do. They'll say like, yeah, sounds really interesting. I have to talk about it with my business partner. I'll be like, yeah, for sure. I don't want to make you, take a decision on your own when you have a business partner. Was he also interested in like doubling the revenue price and getting more jobs and everything? Yeah, we're both on board. Okay, perfect. Did I explain to you exactly how? And then I'll move on to something completely different, go back for the close, and completely forgot that he said, or ignored that he said, I need to talk about with my business partner. I'm just going to go for the close again and make him, make a decision. This is very important. I made a video on that as well. Sales training. It's called ART, A-R-T, how to handle objections. Okay, A-R-T, acknowledge, respond, and transition. So you acknowledge the objection, you respond to it, and then you transition to something completely different. I explained this in my, I think it's my script, my cold calling script video. Okay, I explained the ART. Watch that, it's going to help you a lot. So common objections, the price. If you have a good offer, this shouldn't come up too often. I'm going to think about it. That's a very popular one. So as I mentioned, like you can easily get past that, like as I just showed you guys. Talk with business partner, or let's start next month. Start next month isn't too bad because they might actually be like through, but you still want to push at least once or twice to get them to start immediately. All right, what I typically do is they say I want to start next month because this month I'm super busy. I'll be like, yeah, of course. Anyways, it does take like a week or two just to set everything up. So what I can do is just send you over all of the information. We can start setting everything up so that once we hit the next month, we can immediately launch the ads and not waste any more time. Okay, very simple. So don't let people push you over. That's the most important part in handling objections, right? Just, it doesn't matter the script or whatever you use. Just don't let, if someone says it's too expensive, don't say like, okay, I'm sorry. You have to explain to them why it's not too expensive, or ask them, you can negotiate too. Okay, a common negotiation tactic is that's what I do. I ask them, what would be a fair number to you? Okay, let's say my price was $2,500. What would be a fair number to you? They'll say $1,500. I'm like, okay, perfect. That's a bit low. Typically, our minimum is $2,500 per month. What I can do, since we are a newer company, I'll lower it to $2,000. But in exchange, I'll ask you for a case study or a testimonial once I do deliver you those amazing results. Does that sound like a fair deal to you? Okay, super simple. And then you go for the close. All right, when they're onboarded or they're ready to start, if you do have an upfront fee, best case scenario is to get them to pay on the spot. Otherwise, you can immediately send it after the call and get them to pay. Okay, it really depends of the client and you know who. Like for some clients are super sold, like they're like, hey, let's do it. I'm really excited. Let's do it. I'm pumped up. What do I pay? Like, what do I do now? And then you send them the link. They'll do it right away. Other people, you don't want to push too much. You send them the link and you wait for payment. Very important also, on the call, book the onboarding call for next week. Okay, this is extremely important. You don't want them to kind of, and this is very important too. You want to book the onboarding call for next week. So you tell them, you send them the link to the Stripe account, the link. Like, okay, perfect. It is going to take us about a week to get everything prepped up. So how about we book a call for next Monday? Does that work with you? They'll say yes. So you book it. After the call is done, mini onboarding. Obviously, this is a lot more complicated, but you send the onboarding form by email and you also send them the contract. And ideally, this will be filled up before the next onboarding call with the client. All right. So this is it. It's not too complicated. All right. It's pretty simple. Important parts, just to stay organized, ask them a bunch of questions, really get to know their pain points, and then afterwards explain how your service can really solve those pain points of theirs.